Hi guys, this is Lana, and this is the Second Breakfast Club. And today we are celebrating J-Hope's birthday, Hoseok's birthday. Happy birthday! I know you celebrated yesterday, but it's the 18th here, and I want to maybe continue the celebration a little bit longer. So I want to do something a little bit different today than we usually do. I'm not reacting to any videos, so I'll say right here up front, this is not a reaction to Daydream. We've already reacted to it. But what I want to do is take a moment to really appreciate J-Hope's talents and skills that I don't think he gets enough attention for. Recently on a V-Live, he said this.
콜라보 계획 있냐고요? 저요? 그러게요. 이게 참 뭔가 저도 한 번쯤은 생각을 해보거든요, 이 콜라보에 대해서. 근데 그거 있죠. 그러니까 뭐랄까, 제 존재 자체가 약간 증명이 안 된 기분이랄까? 뭐랄까? 저는 약간 믹스테이프 내면 이게 제 명함이 될 줄 알았는데 사실 그것만은 아니더라고요. 네. 곡에 대한 이 깊이랄까? 그런 것들이 약간 부족하기 때문에 제 자신이 스스로 뭔가 그런 것들을 잘 피하는 것 같아요. 네. 그냥 아직도 그냥 제 자신이 부족하다고 느끼는 거죠. 그래서 충분히 뭔가 콜라보를 하려면 할 수는 있을 것 같은데 그냥 제 자신이 준비가 안 된 듯한 느낌이 너무 많이 들어가지고 그래서 조금 약간 두려워하는 것 같아요.
Now, it kind of broke my heart because I've always seen J-Hope as being actually one of the better writers in the group. I really, really like and relate to a lot of the things he says. But it got me thinking, like, I love reaction videos. I love watching reaction videos. And so I've seen a lot of them. And I feel like a lot of people don't ever pay attention to his writing and his composing. I think he gets a lot of attention for dancing and for his looks and sometimes even his style. Like I think Daydream got a lot of attention for the colors and the composition of the film. But I didn't hear a lot of people really taking the time to appreciate and break down what he was saying. And that kind of made me sad because it's clear that's what he wanted to be most important here because this is a video where he doesn't dance. And that happens like a lot to him. I feel like it happens a lot. He's consistently incredibly passionate about his performance. He has some of the best verses of all of BTS's songs ever. A lot of them are his in terms of like passion and really good delivery on what he's talking about, and people don't tend to talk about that a whole lot. They focus on other things. So, for J-Hope's birthday today, I want to do a bit of an analysis of Daydream and kind of break down and focus on some of these things that I personally feel are underappreciated so that as a birthday gift, maybe this video and all of your comments and everything you're going to say down below can maybe, I don't know, we're a small channel, probably never see this, but if he stumbles on it, I want him to see that he is appreciated for a lot of these things. And he is a good musician and a really good composer and a really good writer and a really smart writer. And yeah, let's have a little look at what's going on here with Daydream. Okay, before we start here, I want to just put out the little disclaimer that this is me interpreting things using kind of my knowledge of writing and literary symbolism and art symbolism and stuff to like make sense of this. I'm obviously not saying I know exactly what he meant when he was saying these things or that I'm interpreting this perfectly well. This is just what I see and how I interpret things. So it's totally cool if you have a different interpretation, and it's obviously super cool if at some point in the future Hobi comes out and gives more detail about his thought process and like I'm totally wrong. That's cool. But yeah, with that set up front, let's dive on into the lyrics. J-Hope's lyrics have always been some of my favorites as I was dissecting like what songs I like and trying to figure out why I like those particular ones. He's consistently a writer on all of my favorite BTS songs. And he does this interesting thing with his music in a lot of the songs that he writes, where the beat is great and a lot of times even a bright beat, and it's easy to dance to, but it's paired with really bittersweet lyrics and really bittersweet messages. So there's always two sides to what he's doing. And when you strip away the colors and the fun of Daydream and just look at what he's talking about some really important and kind of dark things. And yeah, so let's dive into there first. My character's like half and half, who knows? A public figure's striving life, who knows? Abstaining from large cravings, who knows? Always out of breath for daydreaming, who knows? So right up front, we get that this song is going to be a lot more autobiographical than I think a lot of people were expecting. Because even just that first line, my character's like half and half, who knows? J-Hope's been really open about the fact that what we see on camera a lot of times, like in Bangtan Bombs and stuff, is quite often a character. He even calls it a character. He's not fully being himself, and that's probably for a lot of different reasons. Most famous people aren't, like, have a character when they're on camera, but a lot of people don't admit that up front. So I think that's what he's talking about here. Like, there are a lot of different sides to him, and there's these two big primary sides to him. One that's this passionate, driven figure, especially a public figure, who he is when everybody is looking at him. And then the him who he is when he's by himself and he's just like caught up in daydreaming about better things, caught up in wishing and thinking and trying to figure out what he wants and how to make things better. Which to me is kind of sad because it kind of sounds like he is a type of person who can never be fully content with where he is. He's always 2 steps ahead and thinking about where he wants to go next, or daydreaming about what life would be if it was different and what he wants that he can't have. And all of that means he's not particularly in the present all the time, especially when he's by himself. And that can be really hard and really anxiety producing. And I'm glad that he's decided to share that with us. Want to cry in peace, I know. Want to party like crazy, I know. Want to be flooded with love, I know. Yeah, I know, because me. So right there he's saying, you know, he's reached this level of fame and this level of attention where a lot of basic life pleasures that you and I take for granted just aren't available to him anymore. He can't just go out and party when he wants to and have fun when he wants to and fall in love when he wants to, or, you know, even have basic emotions when he wants to. He's not allowed to break down. He's not allowed to cry. He's not allowed to feel these things because life is so fast and everybody is watching him all the time. So these are things that he just can't allow himself to do. Y'all must have been caught like fish in a net called desire, with thirst in life, common psychological escape. Even I can't swim out of it. So basically, all of us get to a point where we feel trapped and we're all stuck, and all of us daydream about something better, even though it's not particularly healthy sometimes. And he's saying, you know, it's a really human thing to do, and I do it too. Like, this is a trap that we all fall into, this discontent and this inability to be super happy with what we have, or to not question how life would be if we would have made different choices. Whether we like the life we're living or not, we're still often thinking about what if something was different. Not a reality refusal, discontent misfitting, ain't none of that, love my rule. Here, J-Hope is saying, I don't dislike the life that I have now. I'm really happy for what's going on in my life, but that's not stopping me from daydreaming. You don't have to be unhappy to be stuck in thinking about what if. For once, I want a different picture in my life, that I want to draw a canvas dream. So, pretty clear. A big reason why he daydreams is he gets to rewrite his life. He gets to be in control of this potential future that he's thinking about. And I think the bit that kind of makes me sad here is the for once. I get the feeling from the song sometimes that there's this idea of there's not a lot of choice. There's not a lot of freedom. There's not a lot of opportunity, which makes sense when you think about his life. There's a lot of things he probably wants that just aren't open to him and aren't available to him for all sorts of reasons. And he probably has spent a lot of his time not really feeling totally in control of anything, even down to his own psychology and his own desire for more. It's something I kind of relate to be honest, where you have this artistic drive that doesn't necessarily make you happy all the time, but that's what you got, and that's what you got to work with, and you can't really deny it. So here's when J-Hope starts to get very literary. It's another thing I appreciate about him. I'm not entirely sure what his relationship was with his dad or schooling, but he drops more literature bombs than everybody else in his work. And I wonder if that's tied to the fact that his dad's a literature teacher or if he just loved reading. But here in the chorus, we have, beyond that boundary line over there, let's feel it. Like the hole Alice fell into, like the road that leads to Hogwarts, it'll be a world of mirages. So I find it very, very interesting that all the literary references he makes in this song are stories where ordinary people have somebody swoop into their lives that brings them out of it into something crazy and fantastical and mind-blowing, just changes their lives in an instant. But all of those stories also have those characters who get swept away, get brought back. They come back home eventually. So there's this very normal big shot of luck or craziness happens, and then it comes down and there's almost a return to normality, which you see again. It's a theme in a lot of his songs, this airplane type idea of you can start with nothing and then go up, and you better enjoy the ride because you know eventually you're going to come back down. And that might not be all the way back down to where you were. It might be a different place than where you were, but you're still going to come down. And that's just the wheel of life. That's the nature of things. And so you have to appreciate the present, and you have to appreciate every chance that you get, because you never know if you're going to get another one, and you also never know when it's going to end. And it'll all be mine. It'll be exactly how I imagined, but it won't last forever. This is something you see, again, in a lot of both his work and the whole group's work, which I kind of find sad, but I don't think I fully do, because that's just a part of life, and that's a part of life that he understands. He's known what it's like to struggle. He's known what it's like to have next to nothing. He's known what it's like to have no hope. And I think that's made him humble to the point that he also knows fame and success won't last forever. There will eventually be somebody who does better, somebody who wins the award instead of them. And the best case scenario is they just slowly and quietly drift into the next phase of their life. But it could also be a crash and burn. So he's going to appreciate what he has now, despite all of these daydreams too. But he's also, there's a bit of bitter, again, I'm going to say it a lot, bittersweet here, in that I think he can't totally stop thinking about the end. And that can sometimes spoil the present. Wishing on a sky, wishing on a scar. If there's the sun, I'd want to dream. Wishing on a sky, wishing on a scar. If there's the moonlight, I wouldn't want to wake up. I found this verse really meaningful the first time that I saw it. This idea that I think a lot of people who didn't have the lyrics on thought he said wishing on a sky, wishing on a star, which is, really common imagery for wishing things. when you wish upon a star. It's classic Disney, right? But he doesn't. He says scar. And I can't help but think about Mama, his song there, and the story he tells there about the sacrifices that both he and his family made to get him where he is. And this song is very interesting because I think there's this element of both the daydreams he had before he was famous and the daydreams he has now that he's famous. And to me, there's this element of like, he has the airplane metaphor, wishing on a sky, wishing on his dreams, his aspirations, his, wanting to dance and rap and make music and all these things where the airplane will fly through the sky. But also wishing on a scar, wishing on this old wound from the past, this struggle and this hardship that brought him to where he is. And in Mama, there's definitely this element of, I worked really hard so that the sacrifices that you and we made wouldn't be for nothing. And I think that's the same idea here. He has this old wound, this scar, and he's just wishing that what caused that wound in the first place will be worth it. That he's going to succeed, because what would life have been if he went through all that and he didn't make it? Like, I feel like that's something that's on his mind a bit, and so far he seems to be really grateful that he did make it, but there's still that scar, there's still those memories, and there's still that pain that brought him to where he is. And, adding in all these elements. If there's the sun, I'd want to dream. If there's the moonlight, I wouldn't want to wake up. He'll always be dreaming. And here I feel like the use of dreaming is a little more positive than some of the mentions in the past. I think sometimes daydream and dreaming could be a sign of determination and ambition, right? Like, we all know that J-Hope is a very determined person, and he works really hard and is very focused and fiery about what he wants to do. He'll put his all into what he sets his mind to. And I'm sure a lot of what he sets his mind to starts as daydreams, starts as dreams, like thinking, oh my gosh, one day I would like this. And once he decides firmly that he would like something or he wants something and it's attainable, he just goes for it, right? So, if there's the sun, if there's the moonlight, so basically, if I exist at all, I'm going to keep dreaming for things.
So why I get drunk, 미칠 때까지. So why I go wild, 별 생각 없이 젊음을 느껴보자고. Yo, wild and free, wild and free. 나도 한번 해보자.
So what I get drunk until I go crazy. So what I go out and don't think about work. Let's just feel the youth, young, wild and free, wild and free. Let me give it a try. So this, to me, is where there's definitely a turn from potentially some talk about daydreaming about being famous to what he daydreams about now that he is famous, like hardcore. So talking about some of I think it's some reference to a lot of the K-pop like idol purity standards that they're held to, so what, I get drunk and go out and party. So what, I have moments where I'm not thinking about work and I don't want to think about work. He's not perfect. He's human, right? And he shouldn't be expected to not be human and shouldn't be expected to not need breaks. But the part that really gets to me is, the idea of youth and being young, wild, and free is common in some of BTS songs. And here he says, let me give it a try. Which, again, once again, kind of has the connotation of he hasn't before. J-Hope started, and all of the members started this life so young that I wonder if any of them ever had the chance to really be young, wild, and free. To, again, have these moments that we all take for granted. And that he obviously daydreams about having, because if he hadn't realized his goals, if he had quit BTS, if something like that had happened, he could be living a very different life, and there are things that he's missing out on now that he could have been experiencing in a different life, like having the chance to be young, wild, and free without being judged all the time, or without worrying about how that will affect his life and affect the way people see him. No walking on eggshells every day. I do what I want with my feelings every day. A love expert sniping the heart when you fall in it every day. That one I've seen a lot of different translations for. Work out my desire without a formula every day. This is probably my favorite chunk of text in the entire song when it comes to thinking about meaning here. If you don't know the term walking on eggshells, sometimes it's translated as eggshell walking, but it's the same idea here. That phraseology means you're walking very carefully and very determinedly, and always being scared that if you misstep even a little bit, the floor will fall out from under you. So it's used a lot when it comes to like talking to somebody who's known for anger. You have to like walk on eggshells around them because you know if you misstep, they'll get angry. Here, I think it has a lot to do with his dream, with his fame. He's constantly worried about every little step he takes, everything he says, everything he does, because the slightest thing and the floor will fall out from under him. And he kind of goes on to confirm that, I can do what I want with my feelings every day. The love expert line I've seen translated a lot, basically having this connotation of like, I could be flirty if I wanted to, I could, if I see somebody I like, I could go flirt with them. I could be a little love expert, and then work out my desire without a formula. So in this daydream he has about this other life, he could think about what he really wants and not have to worry about how all the pieces would fall together. He could just do it. That's not something he can do right now. He has to walk on eggshells. He can't do what he wants. He can't just go flirt and have fun and fall in love. He can't really go after something he wants without thinking about all the ways it could impact everything else in his life and all of the ways he might be judged for it and all the ways people might respond to it. That's just something he has to do. And it's only in daydreams where these things aren't an everyday part of his life. Ignore my character every day. Want to cry with no shame every day. Dreamless, the first priority, with no concerns for money. Deep sleep. It's just a continuation of what we said before. He's daydreaming about these simple things that he can't do. When he says ignore my character, I have a hard... for me personally, I interpret that as... ignore his persona, this mask that he puts on, the Hobi mask that he uses for all sorts of reasons. I can't say exactly why he uses it. I can assume that it's like part for privacy, part for protection, part for wanting to be entertaining, wanting to have a noticeable character that could make him pop out of the group. But it's a character that he can't walk away from now. And, this is the second time he's roundabout mentioned that he wants to be able to cry without worrying about it. He wants to be able to feel sad and to work out his emotions without being worried about what that will mean and how that will translate into the rest of his life. He wants to be able to make a list of dreams to go after them. He wants to stop worrying about money all the time. These are all parts of his daydream, and again, that means they're all part of his daily life that he can't get away from. This is part of being very famous and getting what he wanted, getting what he originally daydreamed about means leaving these things behind. Which kind of breaks my heart, but also I understand that he's not saying this to complain or to be sad. He did what we all have to do. He made a very deliberate choice. And every time we make choices, we leave something behind and gain something new. But that doesn't stop us from thinking about what could have been.
Yeah, 내게 왜 꿈을 꾸냐 돼 묻는다면 배부른 소리 할 거야. Yeah, 잠시 내려놓고 난 메커니즘에 맞게 stay 쉬는 거라 할 거야. Yeah.
If you ask me back why I dream, I'll sound like I'm bragging. I'll put it down for a minute to match my mechanism, stay. I'll say that I'm getting some rest. So here, he's acknowledging that he might sound like he's whining here. He's got a lot. He's got a lot more than most people have, and also something that a lot of people dream about. So he's saying, if I told you what my daydreams are, I'm going to sound like I'm bragging about my current life. Like, I understand how this comes across, but so I won't express it much. I'll just say that I'm going for a rest. I'll just say, I'm having these thoughts. I won't really talk much about it. He's found this pattern that works for him, and he's found a way of dealing with these things. And a lot of it has to do with not talking about it, I think everybody who's paid attention to him for a long time and really listened to the things he says realizes that he represses a lot, or at the very least with us, which, is probably a good thing a lot of the time. We don't need to know everything about his life, and the fact that we don't know so much about his life gives him a lot of protection and privacy in a way that I think more famous people kind of deserve to have.
If I was something now, if I was something, if I was something now, Daydream.
So here we go, the actual crux of this whole song. If I want something now, if I want something now, that's a daydream. He's reached this point in his life where so much is set for him and there's so little time for other things that if he suddenly finds himself wanting something, whether it's new or small or big, it's only a daydream for him. He can't go after it. He's made a choice that has consumed his whole life, and now it's just a daydream. So with all that in mind, and kind of a moment to sit and think about the writing, I want to assess just a few bits of imagery from here. Y'all know that I love working with film. I make a lot of movies of all different kinds of genres, and so how things are filmed and how they're presented is so important to me and so cool to me. And this video is full of cool things. So I want to talk a little bit about this beginning sequence here. I think when you see him in the striped shirt and kind of the basic room, what you're seeing here is kind of the real him. This is not exaggerated, kind of plain. It could also maybe represent who he was before being famous because of the little shift in costuming that's about to happen. But either way, this is kind of him being super honest, and then the walls start closing in on him. And he's in an aquarium, and he's talking about this trap, like being a fish in a net. And to me, it really represents this, exactly what I just said. The walls are closing in. Like, the world is getting so much smaller. And because the world is getting smaller, his daydreams get bigger. Which is when you see this spectacular shot here of the walls falling down. Which if you haven't seen the making of, that's all practical, and I love it. But there's this sudden shift, this J-Hope in the jacket, this cooler, suaver guy, who's obviously a daydream. This is a part of himself that isn't entirely real, and probably has a lot of who he hopes to be in there. So when you see these colors, when you see these people, when you see pretty much anybody but the striped shirt version of him, that's a dream. And so it can't always be taken completely at face value. There's a bit of an unreliable narrator here in that this is a dream, a desire, not true, not real entirely. I also want to take a moment to talk a little bit about the literary references in more detail. I'm sure at this point, most people have finally answered the who's Arthur question. But if you didn't know, this is a reference to a book called The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which is a book I love. My dad read me the entire series as a kid. And it's about, it's a comedy sci-fi book, a classic. It's very, very famous, about a man who is basically just living a normal life, and he finds out that his house is going to get demolished to build a freeway. And when he's fighting that, an alien, one of his friends who he finds out is an alien, picks him up and hitchhikes him onto an alien ship as the Earth is destroyed. And the sort of encyclopedia this alien carries with him is called The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which he's definitely making reference to here.
The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is a wholly remarkable book. It has the words, "Don't Panic," printed in large, friendly letters on its cover.
So I'll admit, when I saw Don't Panic and Arthur, I kind of fell in love, because this is, like I said, it's a famous book, but it's also kind of a nerdy reference and a very literary reference, and I felt a little twin soul there. I want to repeat again, too, that the books that he mentions are all about escape. They're all about escape, not necessarily on your own terms. None of the main characters in these books made a super active decision to enter a magical world or enter into an adventure. They're kind of swept up by either other people or stumbling into it.
And curiosity often leads to trouble.
Here, you'll need this. What are you doing? Hang on, we're hitching a ride.
You're a wizard, Harry.
I'm a what?
To me, that's kind of like, J-Hope probably feels like that sometimes. There's this element of luck that kind of picked him up and swept him and the rest of the group into fame very quickly. And that can be kind of disorienting. But at the same time, it's also a big part of the daydream, right? How many of us have spent time daydreaming about like a sudden change or a person or something sweeping in and changing everything that we're unhappy about? That's really common, right? That's a lot of people dream about finding out that they're more than they are, or suddenly having their dreams come true in one big fell swoop. And so again, it's bittersweet, right? It's about dreaming of escaping and feeling trapped, but at the same time, it's also about luck, and it's kind of what happened to him, and that doesn't happen super often. So it's probably something he thinks about a lot. And finally, I want to take a moment to talk about the very last scene. This one can be interpreted a lot of ways, to be honest, but you essentially have the perfect daydream, Hobi's daydream version of himself, telling him, it's time to wake up. You're spending all this time daydreaming. It's time to get up and actually do something, right? And despite saying wake up, we still see him sleeping. We see the airplane taking off. And then we hear a click as the alarm on his clock is going off. Now, when I first saw this, I interpreted that click as hitting the snooze button, which is kind of a depressing way to look at this, right? That would imply that he would rather dream in that moment than go back to real life. He's delaying that. He's delaying taking action. He's delaying really living. And it looks like he missed his flight because he wanted to dream longer. He missed the actual takeoff. So there could be a message there either about depression and how hard that is to get up and start doing things, which is something we know that he struggled with in the past. That's what Piece of Peace is about, his song Piece of Peace. And he's been very, very honest and open about that. It could also have kind of a fable-ish message of if all you do is dream and you never take action, you're going to miss your opportunities. You're going to miss the chance to make those daydreams real. But another a little bit happier interpretation of that is that click sound could also have been him turning off the alarm to wake up. and the plane taking off could have been symbolic of, you know, I woke up and I made my dreams happen and I'm on the airplane, which, as we know, he uses as a metaphor for the success of BTS. So I think all of those are fairly valid ways to interpret that scene, and all of them have messages. And I think we all should kind of cling to the one that means the most to us, that makes the most sense in our lives, because that's how this will help us out, right? So that was my little dive into this. I find this song very deep, and it actually means a lot to me and hits me pretty hard, because I can relate to a lot of it. But at the same time, I can't help but see this song as incredibly personal to him, and it makes me think a lot about him, and just how conflicted and confusing it must be to have a life like his that has been so magical, but also such a fish tank, right? Everybody can look in, and he's trapped in a box. And it can be a beautiful box, but it's still a box, right? So it's important, I think, to stop and really think about a lot of the themes in this song. And for heaven's sake, go back and look at a lot of his other songs that he's done. You know, Boy Meets Evil, it's some of my favorite writing in BTS canon. Like, that song is so good that I wish more people did lyrics reaction videos to it, because the dancing is so spectacular that a lot of people didn't pay attention to that song, and that is a good song. Again, another very bittersweet. Actually, it's not even like bittersweet. That's a dark song, but it's so relatable. I feel like J-Hope is one of the members, depending on how you relate to relationships, perhaps the best member at talking about really real adult, like, forms of love and forms of living life in all of its complexities and all of its really imperfect, not fairy tale, not easy to make decisions, like it's crumbled pieces. And that's what I mean by Boy Meets Evil. That song is a very conflicted song and represents a situation that's not easy. And that doesn't always fit with the norms of what people would say you're supposed to do with a love, or how love is supposed to affect you. And that goes for a lot of his other songs that he talks about. And even the way he interprets songs that he doesn't write. He has some of the most powerful verses in songs. Like, his line in Tear, mind-blowing. The way he sings Boy Meets Evil is incredible. Let Me Know. Oh my gosh. Like, this boy sings with emotion and presence, and just, he's a performer in a lot of different ways, but I feel like he also throws his whole soul into what he's doing all the time. And I find it both inspirational and, like, really raw. J-Hope is really raw and honest, and I think that's why I'm really attracted to the work that he's doing. And I also feel like he's not getting, I don't want to say enough attention, because I feel like he knows he's loved, and I feel like people do give him attention, but I get really frustrated that I feel like he's not getting enough attention for big chunks of his talent, like for the right reasons all the time. So they're definitely the right reasons, but not all of the right reasons. You know, I don't know. I want to take a moment to celebrate his musicality and his writing and his ability to create, because I want him to understand that he is ready, and he is as good as the rest of the rap line, and he is worthy of collabs if that's what he wants to do. And I think the world needs more of his powerful work, and people need to slow down and really pay attention to him sometimes as an adult creator, not just a super hot dancer. So yeah, leave some comments below. Talk about what you love about Hobi, and just what you wish for him on his birthday, and just wonderful, nice things, so that once again we can put a lot of positivity into the air and into the world for him. And hopefully, even though he'll probably never find this video, he can feel just a little bit warmer because a group of people have gotten together to wish him all the love and happiness that he could want and all of his best daydreams to come true. So until next time, live long and prosper. Also, like, comment, and subscribe, and love our Hobi. Bye!